All right, I'm going to critique and put my 2 cents in for Jens Larsen. His name's Jens. It's pronounced Jens. Jens Larsen's video that's entitled 7 Excuses That Stop You from Learning Jazz Guitar. I'll be nice, don't worry.
To help you enjoy the journey of learning jazz, I'm going to show you 7 common excuses that can block your progress by ruining your motivation. And there are certainly a few that I've run into myself, but I'll talk about that as well. I'm too old to learn this. Now, this is something that I come across in 2 different variations, and both are definitely not going to get you anywhere, but I think the second one is actually the biggest problem. The first variation is just giving up. I'll see comments saying, I don't want to practice, I'm too old to learn new things. And of course, it's true that it gets more difficult to learn as we get older, but the brain does actually keep learning our entire life. And I think the biggest factor is that you're not in the habit of learning. But
I think he's absolutely correct here. If you are in the position right now where you think you're too old to learn, I believe you're never too old to learn. Even Wes Montgomery, that he uses as an example, started rather late in life, actually. Like considering a lot of people. You're never too old. If you think you're too old, you might have a problem. It's a good way to keep your brain plasticity intact and learn something new. It doesn't mean that you will be the next Wes Montgomery, but then again, you never know.
Habits are something that you can build, and if you dream about playing jazz, then you can learn at any age. Remember that you will get faster at learning as you spend time on it. I've seen this many times, both in my roadmap course and on Patreon. What is much more important is that you find a way to learn that you enjoy. It's about the journey, not the destination when it comes to music.
Ah, yes. Again, I totally agree. It's about the journey, not the destination. If you only have the destination in mind, you'll constantly get frustrated. It doesn't matter if you're young or old. What you want to do is enjoy the process of learning.
When it comes to music, I still practice learning new things little by little each day, and I'm sure I wouldn't do that if I didn't enjoy practicing. The other variation of this is I'm too old to learn, so I don't want to play solos and I just want to play chords and chord melody. The problem here is that you end up skipping things that you will need when playing chords and chord melody. A huge part of learning jazz is about training your ears for the right type of melodies and the right types of phrasing and rhythm. And that's just 1,000 times easier to learn when you're playing only 1 note at a time, not 4 or 5 note chords. So refusing to learn any soloing, any scales, or any melodies is just going to slow you down. I've said it before, but I'm sure you realize that Joe Pass did not start by learning the things he's playing on his solo albums. So
that's right. Again, I have to agree with him 100%. The same thing, if you do only want to play chord melodies and just chords, you're going to be missing a whole boatload of information if you don't learn phrasing, if you don't try to copy stuff off of your favorite players' recordings, because that will in turn inform everything you do, because you have to play melodies when you play chord melodies even. So don't skip this vital important part. Make sure that you learn songs, melodies, and try to solo, okay?
Find a balanced practice routine and enjoy learning jazz no matter your age. And as I will talk about later, talent is also not the biggest factor, which I actually think is a good thing. I don't have enough time to practice. The one thing that none of us have enough of is time.
Actually, let's stop there. Talent, yes. Talent can give you a little bit of an edge. But I always tell my students this. Even Mozart had to practice. Even Bach had to practice. Chew on that.
With work, studying, family, it can be hard to find time to practice guitar, and often that means giving up or not starting at all, but maybe that's more about planning and expectations, plus that you often forget that there's actually one way of practicing that's pretty easy to fit in almost everywhere. When you plan your practice, then try to pay attention to these three things. Practical sessions. You will get frustrated if you start by trying to block several hours every day to practice, simply because it's unrealistic, and even if you find the time, you don't have the energy and the focus to practice for that long.
Yeah, I have to agree with Jens here one more time. You don't want to be setting yourself up for disaster. You don't want to make this great big long list of, I want to accomplish all these things today. I would suggest maybe just picking even one, maybe two, three things tops to work on in one day. As you get more into practicing, your attention span will increase and you'll be able to focus for longer periods of time, and you'll get more accomplished, and you'll have a more sense of accomplishment because you're kind of, okay, I've got this much done, now let's see what I can tackle next.
You're just setting yourself up to fail. In that respect, I think it's much more efficient to only aim for short practice sessions, like 15 or 20 minutes. If it's short, then it's easier to fit in, and if you practice longer, then that feels like a victory, instead of always practicing less than you were hoping and get frustrated. Another thing you want to make a priority is that you enjoy practicing. So mix things that you like to work on with the things that you need to work on. And
yeah, if you don't like practicing, you probably aren't suited for music. You just have to get used to that. I don't want to say give up, but it's a necessary thing. You have to put some time in. And then let me go back. Let me see what he said here.
Another thing you want to make a priority is that you enjoy practicing. So mix things that you like to work on with the things that you need to work on, and make the practice time something that you look forward to doing.
Right. Now, I would add something that I tell my students is to try to put everything that you think is going to take the most amount of effort at the beginning and work your way to the easier things towards the end. And I had a teacher who told me this many, many years ago, is you'll feel much better about your practice session if you give some time at the end of your practice session to just let loose, have fun, play your favorite pentatonic licks, whatever. End your practice session feeling like you've accomplished something, that you feel good. You want to walk away instead of like, okay, well, it was drudgery. I'm walking, or I'm playing through all this stuff that I find really difficult and challenging, and blah. And then you walk away, and then you're like, you don't look very forward to the next practice session when you're feeling like that. So if you know how to play a solo really, really well, or you know this one song really, really well, and you know how to improvise over it really well, and you know the changes really well or something, then play that. Just feel good about that day's practice session.
Realistic goals are also important with this, so watch out that you don't expect to be the next Wes Montgomery after practicing daily for 3 weeks. In fact, your goals should really just be more about things that you want to improve in your playing, not comparing yourself to someone who defined the genre or has decades of experience. Now,
I would have to again agree with Jens here. It's all about looking more inside and figuring out what you want to accomplish, what you want to improve on, not how to get yourself to sound like your favorite player. You can use that as inspiration, maybe, but you don't want to travel down this road where you're never going to sound like someone else anyway. So work on understanding and learning the tools to be able to improvise, play chords, read from a chart, things like that. Just small steps.
Bonus tip here, and I think this is really underrated, is that a practice activity that is pretty easy to fit in and doesn't even require you to play guitar is listening to jazz. So don't underestimate how much you will learn by listening to jazz while you are traveling to work, walking the dog, cooking, working out, whatever you do, listen to jazz. Jazz.
Yeah, very true, very true. Lots of times I've had students over the years come to me and they say they want to learn jazz. And then the first thing I ask them is, who do you listen to? And you'd be amazed that they say, well, I don't really listen to jazz. Well, how do you know what jazz is supposed to sound like if you don't even listen to it? You have to get the sound of jazz in your ear, or whatever type of music you're listening to. This, not just jazz, any style of music. You start to hear the sounds, the rhythms, the phrasing. Let's say you want to learn Italian. Probably might be a good idea to start listening to how Italian people speak in their native tongue. Even if you're just imitating the rhythms and the way they phrase things, at least you're getting closer to learning Italian, because you might be saying the Italian words correctly, but you're not. Someone's going to look at you like, you talk funny, if you're not saying it the way Italian people do. Same thing with jazz. What was that you just played? That sounds funny.
Is often connected to certain types of guitars and certain types of amps, and I have run into that in a few different ways. When I did my audition at the Royal Conservatory in The Hague, I was told that I was accepted, that I was really playing jazz, but I still had a lot to learn, and that they would help me get a loan to get a real jazz guitar, since...
Yeah, that bothers me. There's been so many people that play great jazz on a non-jazz guitar. I'm sure he's probably going to list some, but so I'm not going to name any. But I sometimes people in higher education have this weird attitude about what kind of guitar you have. I think it's more like an image thing rather than a practical thing, because you can make a guitar, any guitar, sound almost like another guitar. If you have a guitar that works perfectly fine, start using that. You don't have to spend $3,000, $9,000 on a expensive jazz guitar.
I was playing a Stratocaster. That's of course nonsense. In fact, one of my teachers at the school, Auerbach, also plays a Stratocaster. There is no real jazz guitar, and you can easily play jazz on any guitar that you want to. Just listen to Ed Bickert using a Telecaster, or that Joe Pass video where he's playing a Jaguar or a Jazz Master, or whatever guitar that is. You want to play jazz? Go for it. Think about the music. You can worry about gear later. If you want to see just how little it matters, then I'll link to a video in the description that compares my guitars, and nobody can tell the difference. The other way around is of course also possible. You start learning jazz because you want a new guitar, but then that's not an excuse for learning jazz. Let me know what you think.
Agreed. Just play what you got.
And if I missed something that you hear used as an excuse. Jazz is too complicated. Now it's funny because jazz isn't actually as complicated as people say it is, and it...
I agree. You have to do a little bit of homework and a little bit of study to understand what's going on, because it is a little challenging, but it's not impossible. It's not impossible. If you really want to learn how to do it, there is a little bit of theory that you might need to know. You don't have to know a ton of theory, but you do have to know a modicum of theory to understand what you're doing. If you don't want to understand what you're doing, all the more power to you, but it might be a bit of a hit and miss kind of thing.
And it's also the fact that it's complicated that is the reason why some people are drawn to it. I think a huge part of the problem here is the way jazz is often taught, with a lot of information up front and then a very long road to put that into music. Now, I often compare music to a language, and you don't learn a language by first memorizing a dictionary.
That's true. That's true. I think a lot of people, and a little bit of myself, when when I first got started playing jazz, played too many scales. What do you got to learn so many scales for? I would have been better off if I learned the songs, if I would have learned the melodies, and concentrated more on that than playing the scales. Nothing wrong with learning some scales, a little bit on the side, but don't do it as a precursor, as a pretext to thinking that you have to learn something. Just dive in. Do it.
And the same is, of course, true for music. That's just outdated teaching from the 70s, or maybe it's just bad teaching. You can learn jazz without a million scales.
I agree. Totally agree. Totally agree. It's more about the rhythm and certain note choices that, if you find the right teacher, then you'll discover that it's not that hard, but you just have to do certain things to make it sound like jazz.
And you can start with real music. It's about learning to make it sound like jazz. And that's also what I cover in my jazz guitar roadmap course, without using hypochondrian flat six or retrophonic arpeggio pairs. It doesn't have to be complicated. The basic concept that works for most things in music is to start with the overview and then add detail along the way. And this also works for most things in jazz. I can't afford lessons. This is not as big of a problem as it used to be. Of course, if you can take real in-person lessons, then that is the most efficient way to learn.
Yes. If you can't take in-person lessons, which is, I feel, the best, then Zoom is the next sort of notch down from that. But let's see what he's got to say next, because he might bring up some other valid points.
To learn, you have someone help you learn the right things in the right order and give you feedback on how you're doing. But if that's...
Feedback is good. Feedback is good. And it's kind of like a doctor. If you don't like that doctor's opinion, or you want to get somebody else's opinion, find another teacher. There is something about finding a teacher that you click with, for sure. Let me go back here. What did he say here again?
You have someone help you learn the right things in the right order.
Yeah, if you're learning on your own, it can be a piecemeal thing. Like, you might learn something over here, watch somebody's video, and learn something here, and then you can't make a connection because you don't know all the other things leading up to that. That can be a problem. But there is no right order, in a way. Not that I don't think Jens is completely wrong here, but when I say there's no wrong order, I mean, just start learning. You'll figure it out. You'll eventually figure it out. If you want to do this, you'll figure it out. You'll figure out what the order is. Everything will start making sense. But you got to learn songs. You got to start improvising. You got to start playing chords, not just ideas and concepts. You got to start putting these things in songs.
And give you feedback on how you're doing. But if that's not an option, then you are kind of in luck if you compare now to how it was when I started playing jazz, which is, I guess, over 25 years ago. because now you have a lot of options with free online material that you can use. It's not as efficient as lessons that are tailor-made for you, but you can still get a lot further, and there are options like courses that are a lot cheaper than one-on-one lessons that you can upgrade to once you feel it's worth it. Just get started and learn some songs. I think...
See, learn songs. I agree with him there. And there's no one path. You could even do this completely on your own. You could start from scratch by trial and error and trying things out. But I'll tell you, it'll take you 10 times as long as if you find someone or something that can give you information that will be more or less a bit of a shortcut. Not that there is an immediate quick path to be from point A to expert, but you might get point A to expert faster than if you tried to figure it out all on your own.
I think talent is overrated. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't exist or that it is an advantage to have talent, but when you're learning jazz, then thinking about whether you have talent or not is not very useful. When I worked at the young talent department at the conservatory, then what I saw was that the most important talent that a student could have was the ability to work and study, almost to the...
Yeah, I agree there. I don't think I have any extraordinary talent, and most musicians don't. It's just from working really hard. That's all. Just work really hard. I think the biggest talent that someone can have is just being stubborn.
Come on. Doodle.
Really, being stubborn, of not giving up. I'm going to learn how to do this. Mixed with curiosity, I guess. Like, how did that person do that? Or how do I make something work? That's what always spurred me on.
The point of talent working against some of the students. And that's kind of also how I remember my own study. The students who practiced and worked got better, and effort was just worth more than talent. Now, when it comes to learning, then if you think you have no talent and you think that you need to be talented, well, then that means that the only thing you can do is give up. And surely it's just a lot better to try to get as good as you can and enjoy playing the music, not wonder about some magic gift you may or may not have. You also want to remember that playing music has a lot of different sides and nobody is talented with everything.
Right, that's true. Some people may have a natural, a technical ability almost seemingly from day one that can do things that other people can't. Some people have naturally good ears that can hear things. Some people have good sense of timing. Other people don't. They have to work on it. Other people that have a sense of harmony for whatever strange reason. Everybody's brain and experiences in life are different. So nobody, except for maybe rare exceptions, are born with everything ready to go, although you still have to practice.
Ironically, thinking you're talented can actually also work against you because it stops you from realizing that there are things that you need to learn. You don't need to learn anything. You have talent. So don't worry about talent.
Yeah, sometimes I've witnessed this. I've witnessed talented people who were almost lazy because they didn't seem to have to work at it. And you know what? Those are the people that have fell off, that aren't even in the music business. Not that you have to be in the music business if you want to learn jazz or music. But, you know, maybe they're working at McDonald's now. I don't know. And there's nothing wrong with that. I don't think I'm any better because I've learned music. My bank account's probably smaller than theirs.
Don't worry about talent. Just have fun, keep playing, and keep learning. I'm curious what you guys think, because I do sometimes get angry comments when I talk about how...
Yeah, what is with you guys with angry comments anyway? Just pick up your guitar and practice.
Talent isn't very helpful for learning, but at least I know that my biggest talent is that I know how to work. I don't know where to start. So I talked a bit about this earlier, and it is very important that you don't drown yourself in technical exercises and theory, but instead find some simple songs and focus on learning them and playing them, making music, even making it a bit simpler, because you can add detail along the way.
Yep, I agree. Exercises can be great. The right exercises at the right time, maybe that's where a teacher would come in. But I can't argue with him at all about learning songs. Start learning songs, make the song simple. You have to start somewhere. If there's something that you can't do, maybe whether you're kind of doing this on your own or you have a teacher, you can come up with exercises to fix a problem. And that is a big part of learning, is learning how to solve something. That's, probably 80% of what I do on guitar is just literally me sitting down and thinking through problems. How do I get through this? What do I do to make this work? And creating exercises for myself that work. If you're working with a teacher, maybe they can help you design an exercise, or maybe they have exercises that can help you too. But learn songs. Are me and Jens driving this home enough? Learn songs.
But you do, of course, need to check out some scales and arpeggios. Just
see some theory.
Don't make it too complicated. And there is a practical and efficient way to do this. And it also fits with how you want to use scales and arpeggios and solos. And I talk about that in this video, which is essential for understanding.
So it looks like we're at the end. He's, as us YouTubers do, we direct you to watch another video because we want you to stay watching our shit as long as possible. Well, we really do want to help you out. But what do you think? I really didn't find anything wrong with Jens's advice here. Leave your comments below what you think. Is there something that I have left out, or is there something that you think Jens has left out? And why don't you share some excuses that you've either heard or maybe excuses that you've had in the past? Because, we all have excuses. It's part of being human. So share them with me. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you want to learn from me about learning how to play jazz guitar. And if you haven't heard of Jens, definitely subscribe to his channel as well. Adam Smale here, and I'll see you soon.